Hi, my name is Marco Suarez, the executive chef of a restaurant in Jamaica Plain called Bon Savor, and I'm showing you how to plate our muqueca de peixe, which is a Brazilian seafood stew, traditionally with tomatoes and coconut milk, a little bit of spice in there as well. We have this stew base right here that we pre-make ahead of time. Basically, it's diced tomatoes, calamari, a mirepoix, which is celery, carrots, and onions, ginger, garlic, and jalapenos all stewed together for a couple hours, and we finish it with a little coconut milk. So it's, you know, rich, but a little bit of Caribbean in flavor with the coconut milk and a little bit of spice to it from the jalapeno. So what we do is we take a couple tablespoons of this, drop it in the pan, a little bit more than that. Make sure you want some of that juice in there because you're going to be steaming some shellfish in there. Put that on the fire. We had our 3 beautiful Wellfleet clams, getting from Wellfleet, Massachusetts. And put those on there with the stew base. Turn up the heat and drop the top on it to let those clams steam open. Other ingredients we have PEI mussels, Prince Edward Island mussels, some shrimp, 1620s is the size we use, but any size will work. Some butter and some cilantro. Unsalted
What kind
butter.
of butter is it?
Just regular Cabot unsalted butter. Some cilantro, and our garnish is going to be some scallion curls, which is just some scallion, really thin julienne in some ice water, and they kind of have a tendency of curling up like that when they get into ice water. So that'll be our garnish for the dish. When you're cooking fish dishes, especially fish is so sensitive and can overcook, that you want to make sure you're adding the fish in the proper time so that one isn't overcooked while the other one is raw still. So in this dish, the clams happen to take the longest. There is technically clam, shrimp, calamari, and mussels in this dish, but like I said, the calamari is in the stew base already. Like here's a piece right here that's already been cooked and braised. Calamari has a tendency of getting overcooked and toughening up, and then after a long braise will start to tenderize a little bit after a long period of time braising. So we want the clams to cook first, and then the shrimp and the mussels basically take about the same amount of time to cook as each other, and so that they're not overcooked, we add them once the clams have popped open from being steamed at the end. So wait for these clams to open a little bit. Shouldn't take too long. I would say about anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes to steam a clam open, depending on how, for lack of a better term, strong the clam is. So clams are still steaming a little bit. Shellfish have a tendency, I just closed this one, of opening when there's heat involved. So these mussels have been sitting out for a little while. If you ever get a shellfish that's completely open and you try to shut it a couple times with your fingers and it doesn't shut, that means it's dead and should be discarded. You shouldn't be eating that. You get very sick from bad shellfish. So if you ever get a shellfish that's slightly open, just give it a little press with your fingers and it should shut automatically, and that'll let you know that it's still alive.
Do you have a favorite place to shop for seafood around here? Or recommend for people?
I don't know the name of it. There's a place in the South End right next to Foodies on Washington Street that I normally get my seafood at when I'm cooking at home. Around here, not so much. I know that there's a seafood place up the street. I just haven't been there yet. It's like an Asian market seafood kind of place. Super 88, I've gone to a couple times for some seafood. Generally, and I think most chefs do this when there's you know, an event where you need fish for your house or meat for your house, you just order it through purveyors and pay the restaurant back, which seems to be the easiest way to go about it. So as the water starts to evaporate in there, you want to, before the clams steam, you want to add a little bit of water back into it. You're not really affecting the flavor. All that's happening is you're evaporating by trying to steam. So you're just adding that water back to it to keep it steaming from it being too dry. Keep in mind this is a stew, so you want it to be a little liquidy for the final product. So we're still waiting for those to steam a little bit. I'm trying to see if any of these mussels are open. This one's just open. Just add an example for you. It's kind of like watching the paint dry, waiting for the to steam. Almost there.
Where'd you come up with this recipe?
Something I had when I was in Uruguay, actually. It was a little different as far as the interpretation of the dish. It's kind of a bouillabaisse idea, you know, the idea of a bouillabaisse that I've run on several menus, and then kind of putting that spice and that Latin flavor from the jalapeno and the coconut milk from the dish I had in Uruguay, and kind of putting them together and creating this. So, you know, it's a little bit of work experience. Who I learned my bouillabaisse recipe from, I don't really remember, but you know, a little bit of work experience, and then on top of that, a little bit of dining experience kind of put together in the two, and trying to replicate something I had somewhere else that I really enjoyed. But you can see that this clam's starting to pop right there. It's starting to spread open a little bit. Sometimes if you just kind of tap them, they wake up a little bit and either, for lack of a better term, die and open up, or sometimes not. Sometimes you get really strong. These are really, clams came in today, they're really fresh. They were pulled out of the water yesterday, so these are healthy, strong clams that are going to fight for their life and not want to pop so easily.
And that's what you want, really.
That is what you want, yes. And it helps you, you know your produce, your shellfish is fresh, and you can stick it in the boiling substance for 3 or 4 minutes and it doesn't want to open. But you also want to make sure you hit it right at the right point when they pop. You want to drop these in so that they don't overcook. Because once they pop, then they start to begin to overcook. They're essentially cooked the minute they open, so it's kind of a delicate game of finding that right period. You don't want to pop these open and let it simmer for another 10 minutes and then drop your other stuff in. I mean, once these pop, you want to be ready to go with all your other ingredients. And add a little bit more water. It's going to be taking a while. At this point, you can also season it right before they're about to pop, because you know that's kind of where your liquid content is going to be, and it's not going to reduce too much. So a little salt and pepper. Clams have popped open. We've got all 3 of them open. They're not overcooked. We want to add our mussels, our shrimp, and make sure that the shrimp are half submerged. You're kind of shallow poaching them, and you'll see how quick these take compared to the clams to steam open and to cook. Basically give those about a minute covered, and when you pop it off the next time, the shrimp will be nice and pink, and the mussels should be at least popping cracked. Now the final steps are mounting it with butter and adding your cilantro, and in that process, if the mussels are just barely cracked, they'll cook the rest of the way in that process as they kind of carry over cook. So you just want to let those go on about high heat at this point, because you want those to steam open pretty quickly so that the clams don't overcook. You can see that the shrimp on one side are already turning pink, pretty much 3/4 of the way cooked. The mussels are already steaming open. They have a much thinner shell, so they steam a lot quicker than the clams. They're already pretty much there. So give those a cover for another second. We're going to add 2 pads of butter, just to give it a little bit of richness. I mean, it's not a very Portuguese or Brazilian thing to do. It's more the French side of me coming out. But we add our 2 pads of butter in the top. You don't have to really worry so much about swirling it in, because there's enough liquid in there that it'll emulsify into the rest of the stock. But you're pretty much there. Make sure you're getting your shrimp covered. Shrimp are so high in protein that they cook very quickly as well, so you don't have to worry about serving undercooked shrimp. Sometimes these mussels need a little bit of a help to open. And that's it. Once your butter is mostly melted into the broth, you add your cilantro. And you're going to go to the plate. We have a pretty simple presentation for this. Here's my taste everything. Very good. So what we'll do is we'll go to the plate over here, put our shellfish kind of around the outside. We'll do our 3 shrimp right in the middle. Kind of stacked on top of each other. Make sure you get all that broth in there. Pour that right over the top. And then put our scallion pearls right on top of that. And there you have our moqueca de pêche.